Speaking of Courage podcast. What's up, man? What's
going on?
What's going on, Chase?
Not a whole lot.
Got a good little intro song there.
Not bad. Kind of works.
Is it your birthday today?
It is.
Happy birthday.
I didn't know you knew that. I was going to try to not say anything. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yep.
How old are you today?
37.
37.
Going on 65.
Have you had a birthday that shocked you yet, like as far as the age?
This one kind of.
Did it?
Yeah, I kind of forgot how old I was. And
Yeah.
then like, yeah, damn, I'm actually, 37. I'm come on the downhill to 40. So, yeah.
37, man. Mine was 35, where it was like, ugh.
I don't know why 35 didn't bother me. But
No?
yeah.
No.
It's all the same at some point.
Halfway to 70.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's true.
So where are we headed today, my man?
We're doing our first Marine episode. I've been holding off.
Does that hurt your heart?
No, it doesn't. I love the Marine Corps. I just, I had to stick it around for
Yeah.
a while, dangle it out there, make it stay. We're going to stay with World War II. Or, I'm sorry, we're going to go to World War II. We've been hanging out in Vietnam.
Yeah.
But, World War II, Battle at Iwo Jima, one of the most famous actions in Marine Corps and American military history.
Oh, okay. What makes it famous?
It's popular in a lot. It was one of the bloodiest battles in the Pacific. By some standards, it was the most costly battles in the Pacific. It was the iconic flag-raising photo from World War II.
Oh, okay.
That's Iwo Jima. The Black Sands. It's the John Wayne movie, Sands of Iwo Jima, which actually helped save the Marine Corps from termination after the war. And
Why was it going to be terminated?
it was seen as a superfluous branch. We already have the Army, infantry. We already have the Navy. Why do we need this other branch? It's just a waste of the budget. I mean, It's been talked about many times in American history whether or not they're going to keep the Marine Corps, but there was actually a movement to kind of get rid of it after John Wayne's Sands of Iwo Jima popularity and patriotism and support for the Marine Corps surged. So sometimes they'll say it saved the Marine Corps. I mean, it's a little bit hyperbole, but it's...
And now it's one of the more popular ones, right?
It's always has been. It was
Yeah.
at the time, too. The Marines have the best uniforms, and that's kind of, their public relations machine is pretty awesome. So it's their
What
recruiting
makes
posters
Marines
are
so
badass.
badass? Because it's like everybody, whatever branch you're talking about, they always go, the Marines are badass.
Well, nowadays, the Army has its units. The Army has, the 82nd Airborne and the 101st Airborne. Like, if there's action somewhere, those guys are going to get over there immediately. Obviously, all the Special Forces do and things like that. But in the Marine Corps, even your basic grunt, they have at a moment's notice, they can deploy all over the world and get in the fight very quickly. Every Marine's a rifleman's kind of their slogan. The Army tries to say that too, but in the Army, if you take a cook and you go drill them on military knowledge, they're not going to probably know as much. The Marines are pretty sharp, and they're all going to be solid. They're all going to be, qualifying out to 500 meters with their rifles, even their mechanics and their cooks and their basic everybody.
So everybody can get down.
Yeah, there's a very high esprit de corps. It's an all-volunteer military, so whether it's true or not, if one branch has the reputation as being the biggest, baddest, and the toughest, that's going to attract the guys that want to be the biggest, baddest, and the toughest, and it's going to complete that cycle.
And they were about to be ousted, huh?
Potentially,
Yeah.
That's the story anyway.
So who's our hero today?
Today we're doing Jack Lucas. He's a little bit, in some circles, he's somewhat famous. Some people might have heard of him. He's actually the youngest Medal of Honor recipient of the 20th century. And he was the youngest in Marine Corps history, I believe.
How old?
He was 17 when he earned the Medal of Honor.
17?
Yeah.
How do you join the military?
Well, we're going to talk about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you can't join the military. at
Correct.
17.
Well,
Okay.
you can join at 17, and even today you can join at 17 and a half if you have parental consent or a signature, and you're going to turn 18 in a certain amount of time.
So they'll send you to battle?
No. Well, the idea now is you'll be, by the time you graduate boot camp and
You'll
get
be
going,
18.
you'll be 18. But during World War II and a lot of previous wars, a lot of young guys lied about their age. A lot of guys
wanted to get in the
especially
fight.
in the Civil War. I believe the youngest Medal of Honor recipient was 12 or 14 in the Civil War.
Dang.
Yeah, they're drummer boys and all that good
Yeah.
stuff. But after Pearl Harbor, a lot of guys got in. There was a movie of a sailor called, I think it's called Too Young the Hero. He earned a Purple Heart and before they found out his age and kicked him out. There's actually a club of people, I don't know the name of it. It's like underage service veterans or whatever, people that joined before they were 18.
That's crazy, man.
There's a joke, I don't remember if it was the Civil War or World War II, but somebody writing, he didn't want to lie, so he wrote 18 on a piece of paper and he put it in his sock. So when they asked him how old he was, he said he was over 18 because he didn't want to lie, so he was over 18. But Jack Lucas is going to be the more extreme of these.
Because he cut the rules? Or?
Well, he joined when he was 14.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so my mic feels like it's not super loud. Can you hear me again?
It's probably your headphones.
Oh, okay,
It's loud.
gotcha. Sorry. Yeah, so Jack Lucas, he was a big kid. He's born in North Carolina, farm boy. His dad was a tobacco farmer, so he grew up with that tough farm life during the Depression. By the time he turned 14, he was 5'8" and 185 pounds, according to him. So it wasn't super hard for him to pass as an 18-year-old.
Big kid.
Yeah, and keep in mind, this is the time before Social Security numbers and photo IDs and all that.
Yeah.
So it's literally, where's your paperwork? I have my grandma and grandpa Salas. Their documents and their records are pretty much like they're from the 40s, attesting to he was born in 1990. It's like, I don't have the papers from 1990 because they didn't exist. They're these little, Catholic churches somewhere.
Yeah.
And then later it's, that's true. So it was kind of, Audie Murphy lied about his age and got in a year early. But Audie Murphy was 5'4", 112 pounds. Jack Lucas was 5'8", 185 pounds. So
Big dude.
yeah.
So what made him motivated to get into it? Same type of thing, depression?
Yeah, depression,
Fights on.
extreme patriotism,
Yeah.
and taking the attack on Pearl Harbor very, very seriously.
So Pearl Harbor gets attacked.
Yeah, so he was, like I said, he was born on the farm, grew up in North Carolina. His dad was a tobacco farmer. Real good family, real good parents. His mom taught him, patriotism and taking care of other people. He's got family stories where about, family members or locals that needed help, and they would protect these other people. So he grew up trying to do the right thing with that idea to be a protector. His dad taught him how to fight. He taught him how to box when he was little and punch. A good, loving man. He gave him responsibilities on the farm.
Yeah.
Whenever like a baby calf was born, it was Jack Lucas's job to take care of that small animal. So
That's not an easy job either.
no,
man.
no, not at all. So from a very young age, he's learning responsibilities, he's learning toughness, he's learning grit, he's learning all these things, and he's learning it from the stern, loving hands of his dad. His dad's a hard worker. The country's gripped by the Depression, but they have a cash crop, so they have a little bit of money. They have a farm, so they always have food on their table, and they have, two loving parents, and then him and his little brother.
He's again the oldest brother.
He's the oldest brother. So when he turned 11 years old, his dad got cancer, and his dad ended up dying, which obviously affected him very greatly.
How old was he at that point?
About 11, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so when he's 11, his dad's health is failing, and then one day he tells him, go get your brother. His brother's playing next door, so he knows what that means. So he runs as fast as he humanly can. He grabs his brother. His brother starts crying, I don't want to go home. I'm playing with the neighbors, because he doesn't understand what's going on. He's a bit younger. So Jack's trying to drag him back. By the time he gets back, his dad has passed away. So 11-year-old kid, I mean, that's the most formidable years of your life. I mean, you can imagine now what it's like to lose a dad. But he's, they clinging to his dad's body, and they're trying to pull him away, and he's just bawling his eyes out, and his life's going to be forever changed by this. And he mourned for the rest of his, life, that loss of that father figure who was so integral in shaping who he was as a man.
And not only that, a Depression era.
Yeah, that
dad.
has huge implications for the family.
Absolutely. So that means he has to step up into that role, manage
Right.
the farm.
Potentially,
I'm sure
yeah.
Mama helped and stuff, but
So in
then-
this case, Mom ended up remarrying.
Oh, okay.
And she married an alcoholic, as is
great.
often the place. Him and Jack hated each other. I mean, I don't know the story. Jack might have never gave him a chance because he loved his dad so much. But
Yeah.
they just butted heads. His dad hated him, or the stepdad hated him. He hated the stepdad. So he was kind of angry at the world. Why does everybody else get to have a dad when I don't? So he would go around just looking for fights. Big, tough, rowdy kid. So everywhere he'd go, he had a tough Irish temper. He was just punching everybody he saw, basically.
Yeah.
So his mom, kind of to straighten him out, maybe to get rid of him a little bit, she sent him off to military school, to Edwards Military Academy, I believe.
At what age is this?
11 years old.
Oh, right after.
Yeah.
So she remarried quick.
Yeah, fairly.
Damn. So Pop dies, and within the year, she's remarried. He's shipped off to military school.
Correct.
So that's a lot to go through for a
Yeah,
kid.
that's a lot to go through for anybody to have that big life-changing event. It might have been a little after, but by 13 years old, he's in the military academy. I believe it was shortly after when he was 11, though.
This is an interesting thing after we're probably, how many episodes are we deep? 12 or 10?
13,
Whatever.
13 or 14, yeah.
The common denominator with all these guys, whether it be Snuffy or, any of them, they come from, like, hardship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah, well, it breeds toughness.
Yeah,
you know?
it breeds character. It's really interesting as to what's going on right now in society. Everything's made to be easy.
Right.
So maybe
well,
that's
that's what they say. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a warrior society, or this people are going to go through this great crucible and this triumph, and they're gonna earn freedom with their blood, sweat, and tears, and then their ultimate goal to fight is to make their life easier for their kids. But by doing so, their kids live that easy life. So they say we're only ever one generation away from losing our freedoms. It doesn't take much.
It's a trip because you would think if this stuff happened to Jack in this day and age, he lost his dad, his mom marries an abusive alcoholic, you would like coddle him and everything's and get him
Yeah.
help, and instead of like putting him through that fire.
Yeah, send him to the.
And then look what you created, though. I mean, by
Yeah.
going through that. That's interesting, man, because
Yeah.
they all share that kind of common theme.
People come from all walks, like because Snuffy was the opposite. Remember, he was
Yeah,
rich, but he
I
did
mean,
have his.
but I mean, even a rich kid, you know, sometimes that cuts the legs out from under you too, in
Right.
a different kind of way. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe Snuffy's a bad example, but
but yeah, ever you
You know
come
what I
from.
mean.
Well, in the soldiers that fought World War II all grew up during the Depression.
Yeah.
Some of them fared better than others in the Depression, like Snuffy, but all of them grew up with this hardship and this uncertainty around them.
it's almost better that it happened at that time for us.
It happened because of that time in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. But I mean, yeah, because I mean, even Lucas's dad, they're farmers, but they lost all their money in the stock market too. They're keeping their money in the jars and stuff. That's why some people are of that generation would hoard everything.
Yes.
You know, like I don't know about your grandparents,
Yeah,
but like my grandma
penny
Sal's and
pinchers,
stuff.
man.
Nothing. You wouldn't throw anything away
Yeah.
because you never know if we're going to need this.
And
or
everything's
something.
expensive. Oh, that's so expensive. You know what I mean?
Right, because you never know when the money's going to come again. Because I mean, banks, when you put your money in the bank doesn't physically have the cash.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Everybody's money was just gone. So now we have things to protect us from that, but they don't accept that. The banks did it to them once. They're not going to do it
Wow.
again. So even if you are rich, Snuffy Smith, the country's in this state of uncertainty. So
Yeah.
it's hard to deal with.
Do you think if the same exact situation was happening now, like the same
the war or the
setup,
Depression?
the war, the buildup, the enemy, and we had to go do it now, how do you think we would do?
I think people would rise to the occasion as they're
think
already
so?
doing. Yeah, I don't think the majority of the country is capable of doing what the majority of the country was back then. But every time people talk about millennials or this or that, think of all the Afghanistan Medal of Honor recipients. Pretty much
Yeah.
all of those fall into that millennial thing.
That's
too.
true.
You know, they're a smaller percentage of the population, but they're still heroes out there.
But
and
do
there's
you
still
definitely
patriots out
think there was a higher percentage of these kinds of courageous,
Oh, absolutely. Well,
driven people?
There was more of a community relationship, and people saw the country. They looked at the flag and they looked at the country, and they saw each other. They didn't see, division, and they didn't see, oh, that's not my country. This country, it's somebody else, and blame and victimhood. They saw,
Yeah.
that's us. Let's fix it.
So
yeah,
do you
the
think the
country's bad.
soft
Let's fix
times
it.
has created that? Like the easier times?
Somewhat,
Where it's
yeah.
almost like if you get too comfortable, you start picking everything apart, right?
Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah, but if you're growing up in the Depression and
Yeah,
you're
if
struggling
you-
to eat, you don't really care about being
Right,
offended.
and that's if you want to appreciate America, leave it for a little while. Go to other countries and look at how they live, and you'll figure it out pretty quick.
Okay, I didn't mean to get off topic. All right.
You always do.
So,
No, I'm just kidding.
so he gets shipped off to military school.
Yeah, so he's in military school. He's still a young kid, but he actually thrives there because he's tough. So he likes this military lifestyle. He's playing football, he's wrestling, he's playing baseball, boxing, all those things. He becomes a captain of the cadets there because he's a big kid. He's got leadership. He
he's
likes
tough.
the drill and ceremony, and he's tough as hell. So he ends up actually thriving in this environment. He's there for a while. When he's 13 years old, December 7th, 1941, the Japanese attack Pearl Harbor. So these kids are at this military school, and it's kind of like you picture in those 80s movies of military schools and stuff. They're big dining halls. The commandant of the facility comes in and tells them, we've been attacked, and these are 13-year-old kids, 15-year-old kids up into 18. So it just shocks their consciousness.
Yeah.
You remember 9/11, how it was with us. This is even more severe because it's the uncertainty again. Are we going to be invaded? He's thinking that they are, but a lot of these kids are terrified. You're a young kid. You're probably thinking, I want to go home. I want to be with my family. He's laying in bed at night thinking, I want to kill Japs. He immediately became obsessed with a desire for revenge to kill Japanese.
And then the access to information wasn't the same either, right?
Exactly, and you're hearing rumors and you're hearing all kinds of stuff.
9/11, you go online or you're watching the news, you're getting video of it. You know exactly, within a
Right.
week, you knew
can analyze
exactly
it,
what had
you
happened.
can kind of rationalize it. With them, you're just hearing all kinds of
hearsay.
stuff. Yeah, and you've been hearing hearsay prior to with what the Japanese are doing in China and Manchuria and things. So he said when he would close his eyes at night, he would see the people dying at Pearl Harbor, and it would just piss him off. And he was just filled with this intense desire for revenge. So he couldn't think about school anymore. All he wanted to do was go fight. But remember, he's 13 years old at this time. He's not 17 or 18. He's not getting ready to go. So all he wants to do is join the military and fight. He made up his mind there and then, I'm going to go fight. So he goes and tells his mom, sign my papers, I'm going. And she's like, are you kidding me? You're 13 years old. And he keeps telling her, you need to let me go or I'm going to go anyways. And then she basically says, I only have 2 sons and I'm not going to lose one of them. So he tells her, I won't sleep, eat, think, or do anything until you allowed me to join the military, basically. So he keeps pushing his luck. When he graduates 8th grade, he decides he's going. He's going to join the Marine Corps. He's 14 years old now. He tries to get his mom to forge the papers. I've seen some things that said his mom signed, but my understanding is she refused to lie for him, so he forged her signature. Him and his stepdad hated each other, so his stepdad was more than happy to help him out.
Yeah.
So his stepdad threw him in the truck, drove him to the recruiting office.
He did?
Yeah, he gets to the recruiting officer, and he's still got a little bit of a young face, so the guy's looking at him, and he goes, like, where's your papers? And he's like, oh, I don't have them. I'm 18 years old. Here's my paper with the signature of my mom that proves my age. And he's kind of like, we need some more documentation. So his stepdad steps up and goes, he's 18. So he goes, okay. so they end up taking him. So at 14 years old, in 1942, he's 5'8", he's 185 pounds. He's bigger than a lot of kids that are joining. He's a 14-year-old kid. Imagine yourself as a 14-year-old kid.
Jeez.
What is that, 9th grade?
Yeah.
He's in a line, he's getting on a bus, and he's shipping off to Marine Corps boot camp, which is arguably the toughest boot camp we have to offer in the United States military. So he ends up going to Parris Island. He takes a steam train to Parris Island. He gets issued all his equipment. They throw him in one of these huts with 16 other guys. All his little 10, 12, 13, 14-year-old friends are laying their head down at military academy or back on the farm or whatever, and he's actually laying down, getting ready to do it for real.
And what's boot camp like at this point?
Awful. Yeah, I mean, it's rushed in a way because it's they're trying to get as many troops out as they can, but this is not time for babying anybody. This is, kick you in the ass, you're in the mud, you're in the misery. If people die during training, who gives a shit? Pump these bodies out and make them as tough and as hard as we can.
Are they beating your ass?
Not like in the movies, but I mean, they'll put a hand on you if they have to in this era, in World War II. Yeah, so a 14-year-old kid, it's
insane.
It's insane. But rather than being terrified, rather than being, oh shit, what did I get myself into? He's got this feeling of pride, like, yeah, now I'm gonna get these jabs. And again, at a 14-year-old kid, a lot of these guys that are joining the Marines, they've never left the farm.
Yeah.
He's been in a military academy for the last couple of years, so he's better than them. He's better at drilling. He's better at rifling.
He knows the lingo.
So the drill sergeants drill instructors, actually assign him as an assistant. So he's helping drill the other cadets, the other Marine Corps trainees, and he's 14 years old.
Holy
and they obviously have no idea that he's 14, but he's, everybody he meets, the drill instructors, the NCOs there, they're impressed with him. The other troops are impressed with him. They're thinking, not only is this a good Marine, he's a great Marine, and they don't know that he's 14 years old.
Wow.
14 years old. So he graduates boot camp in October of 1942. They ship him down to an air station in Florida.
Yeah.
He's kind of annoyed because he wants to fight. He doesn't want to be at these air stations. They ship him a little bit further south into Florida. He's a guard on a gate. He's getting annoyed. He starts having fun, though. He starts drinking. A lot of his young life, if you read about him, you're going to read about alcohol, booze, and women, and fights. Everywhere he'd go, he liked to get to mix it up with people. A 14-year-old kid fighting grown men, Marines. He's experiencing the touch of a woman, I guess, at a young age, which would clearly be statutory rape, but they don't know that, obviously, because he's not telling them his age or anything like that.
The world is his oyster at this point.
Yeah, he ends up getting shipped to North Carolina for a machine gun school, which, again, he excels at. He's the top of his class in machine gun school. At some time in March 10th, 1943, he gets word that his stepbrother was actually killed in action in the Navy. He was fighting the Germans, but this kind of intensifies his desire to want to go fight, to want to be a part of this action, to want to be, I don't want to be training, I don't want to be guarding gates, I want to be fighting. So at Camp Geiger, North Carolina, he's so good at machine gun school, he graduates at the top of his class. As a reward, rather than shipping him to California with the rest of the troops that are going to go shipped out to fight, they assign him to be an instructor at the machine gun school. So he's, I think, 15 years old by now.
Dang.
15-year-old kid.
And now he's real pissed, bro.
Yeah, now he's super pissed. He's going, I don't want to be an instructor. I want to kill Japs, and that's the lingo of the time. I don't mean that derogatory, but that's his logic. I joined the Marine Corps to kill, not to sit here and be an instructor. So he's looking at his records, or his orders, and he's going, shit, how do I get out of these?
Yeah.
So he decides, I'm just going to ignore him. So he gets on the train with everybody else to go to California. He keeps his mouth shut. He doesn't tell anybody. When they arrive at California, they get off. They're going through the clipboard. They said, where's your name at? You're not on the list. And he goes, oh, I don't know. You guys messed up my order. So they just added his name to the list and just moved him along. So
damn, so he's just figuring it out at such a young age.
One of many times in his life, he decided that he just was going to make his own orders.
So is he lost at this point to the military?
No, once they add his name to the roll, it's like a muster roll. They're just going to assign him. So there's going to be a giant paperwork paperwork headache back in North Carolina, but in California, it's not a big deal. There's millions of troops going around the country.
Yeah.
They're just going to chalk it up to, oh, it was a minor little mistake. It's not a big deal. He's not AWOL. He's on a different roster,
Yeah.
so he's accounted for somewhere. So it kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, usually you wouldn't get away with that. He definitely shouldn't be doing that, but that's the kind of stuff he's doing. So he, while he's in California, they are doing the training in the hills. They're getting ready to ship out. He's meeting other Marines who have been in combat and they're coming home. So he's wanting to get in the fight. He's 15 years old. He goes and he gets a Marine Corps tattoo on his arm. He's partying in Tijuana.
What does he get?
It's the EGA, the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, but instead of a globe, it's a bulldog head. So just your generic, basic jarhead,
Awesome.
jarhead tattoo. In 1943, they end up sailing to Pearl Harbor, so they're training in Hawaii. They're shipped off to the Pacific. Again, they're getting ready to go to the fight.
So now he's at the site of what incited him.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and he's aware of that too. So he's there, about 2 years later, I believe, and the wreckage is still going to be there. There's still going to be people, the civilians. There's going to be bullets in the buildings and things that are still there. So now he's seething at the,
Yeah.
I'm going to finally get in the fight. I'm going to do this. But he's kind of a ladies' man, like I said. He likes to fight and he likes his women.
Yeah.
So he's got some little girlfriends back home in North Carolina, and now that they're in Hawaii, they're in territorial Pacific, so their mail's getting censored going out. So he writes to one of his girlfriends and tells her that he's 15 years old, and they read his letters. They bring him in and they find out, you're 15 years old. What the hell are you doing? Basically. While this is going on, his unit that he was supposed to be with gets shipped out to Tarawa, which is one of the most vicious battles in the Pacific. So he misses out on the battle, which obviously upsets him. At the Battle of Tarawa, just as a reference, there were 4,800 Japanese soldiers. By the end of the short battle, only 17 Japanese survived. So that's the ferocity with which this battle was
Whoa.
fought. That his guys are going to.
How many Americans died?
I had that written down. Let me see. At Tarawa, we lost about 1,700 Americans were killed in action, and 2,000 were wounded, and the Japanese lost about 4,800 killed in action.
Jeez.
Yeah, and this is a 3-day battle.
3 days?
November 20 to November 23rd, 20, 21st, 22nd, 20, about a 3.5, 4-day battle, yeah.
And then more people died than all of Pearl Harbor.
Right, and this is
One
horrendous, physicality campaigns, guys suffering miserably with no water and things.
Yeah.
Many people would be happy that they missed that, but he's pissed. But they're getting ready to kick him out of the Marine Corps because he's 15 years old. So he tells them straight to their face. They tell him, you're on the next train out of here, basically, or the next ship out of here. He says, if you kick me out, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go join the Army. I'm going to lie again, and I'm going to give all my good Marine Corps experience to the Army.
That's what he said?
So they go, fuck, what are we going to do with this guy? So they go, okay. So they make him a truck driver. So he ends up being a base truck driver. He has to go around, pick up trash, do that kind of stuff, doing miserable detail. Again, all his guys are coming back. They're combat vets now, so he's just getting pissed. So he starts to notice that some guys that are in good assignments get in trouble, and then they send them to combat as a penalty. So he decides, I can do that. So again, he just goes around and starts punching everybody he sees. He's trying to get in fights.
He's actively doing this so he can
He's
go to
actively
war.
doing this to try to get in the fight. So at one point, there's a kind of what he described as like a pretty boy that's out in front of a tent. He gets in an argument with them over some cigarettes, and he beat the hell out of this guy. He scarred his face, tore up the whole tent. They end up locking him up. He got arrested. They threw him in the brig for, he did 45 days of crushing rocks, making big rocks into little rocks, just physical manual labor, and then he had 30 days on bread and water after that. He got out. 5 days later, him and some buddies broke into a Navy storeroom full of alcohol.
Oh, my
The
gosh.
MPs came to arrest him. He was drunk. He attacked the MP, stole his rifle, took off running, but he was so drunk he ran back into some other MPs. So 5 days after he got out, they put him back. Another 45 days breaking big rocks into little rocks, and another some more bread and water. He keeps getting in trouble. He ended up getting 17 convictions of NJP. They call it non-judicial
Jeez.
punishment. And again, he's 15 years old at the time.
And he's actively doing this.
He's actively
to
doing
get
this
in the fight
because he's trying to get them to be so mad at him that they're going to punish him by sending him to combat. Because he's trying to do everything he can in his little mind there to get them to send him to combat. Because
That's crazy.
all he wants is revenge
Yeah.
for Pearl Harbor, basically. So he eventually he realizes this isn't getting me anywhere. I'm tired of going in and out of the brig. I'm tired of being on bread and water. I want to get into the fight. So he sees all these ships in the harbor, all this fleet. They're getting ready to go out. the Fifth Marines are stationed on these ships. He knows they're going into action, and he also knows his cousin's in the Fifth Marines. So he decides, I'm going to find my cousin. So he kind of does the same thing. There's troops going in and out of these Higgins boats. They're going to the ships. They're coming to the shore for their shore leave and stuff. So he just files on one and plays dumb one day. He gets on the Higgins boat with his sea bag, and he's going back to the ship. And again, it's easy for him to get lost on the ship because all these troops coming and going, they're not going to be checking everybody's IDs. He just walks on, and just by some insane stroke of luck, he lands on the same ship that his cousin's on. So him and his cousin shack up, and he's like, hey, what are you doing? Ship sails out for unknown destinations, and he's finally got his wish. He's going into combat.
And nobody knows where he is.
Nobody knows where he is, and that's the problem now, because now he's AWOL. He's legit AWOL. He keeps making his own orders, but he's legit AWOL. They're at a ship going out to sea. He's a stowaway, basically. He doesn't have a bunk. He doesn't have gear. So he figures it out. A lot of the guys sleep on the deck at night because, it's more comfortable, or, the sea air. So he just sleeps up in a Higgins boat. He hides every night, him and his cousin, and then he sneaks into the chow line. He figured out that the guys that have guard duty are on the chow line first. So he would just jump into the front of the chow line, and everybody just thought he had guard duty, and he's kind of just making his way on this ship, heading to destinations unknown, which turned out to be Iwo Jima.
Jesus, dude, that is crazy. So then the people back home are doing what?
So back in his unit in Hawaii, he's AWOL.
What does that mean?
Absent without leave. So
Okay.
you're going to get punished if you're AWOL. If you're gone for 30 days, you're considered a deserter. You're done. If you're a deserter, technically in wartime, they can shoot you for being a deserter. They've done it, but they don't.
So is what he's doing technically a deserter
if you're gone 30 days from your unit, you're a deserter.
no matter where you're at?
Technically.
Really?
Yeah, so he's
not deserting the military, though.
right, but they don't know that. If you're
Yeah.
off the record for that amount of time, you're going to be considered a deserter. And he realizes that. That means potential jail time. That means prison time. That means getting kicked out. So he realizes, I'm not going to be gone for 30 days. So they're far enough out to sea, they're not going to do anything about it. So day 29, he decides to turn himself in. Because what are they going to do to him, right? So he goes to Captain Dunlap, who actually later earned the Medal of Honor as well.
No way.
And he reported, he said, sir, I'm AWOL. This is what it is. This is why. They know he's 17. Or, I'm sorry, they don't know he's 17, but they look at it and they go, you went AWOL to get into the fight. So Captain Dunlap, what he actually told him was, I wish I had a boatload of men that wanted to fight as bad as you did. So they gave him a pack, they gave him a rifle, they gave him some gear.
So he respected it.
Yeah, they assigned him to the 1st Battalion, 26 Marines, which was his cousin's unit. So he got his wish. They put him in his cousin's unit. And he's there again, when they're far enough out to sea to tell him, they tell him, we're going to this place called Iwo Jima. Nobody knows what the hell Iwo Jima is.
But Dunlap is like,
Dunlap thinks
now it's all good.
yeah, it's all good. So now he's good. Now he's not AWOL.
So
He's
Dunlap's
not a deserter.
gonna clean up the mess.
Yeah, Dunlap's going to clean up the mess. He's in the he's in the 26 Marines. He's 16 years old now. 16 years old, headed for Iwo Jima. Some of the most hellacious combat in American history was on Iwo Jima, and this 16-year-old kid is stoked to go there. At no point in his story is he ever like, what did I get myself into? Yeah. Every step along the way, he's just, I'm finally going to get my chance to fight these guys. I'm finally going to get revenge for what happened to my country, to these people I didn't know, but it touched me so personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're going to Iwo
is
Jima.
crazy.
Do you know anything about Iwo Jima?
No.
Okay, so Iwo Jima is basically a miserable sulfuric, hot rock ash piece of shit island. It's just a dot out in the middle of the Pacific. It's got Mount Suribachi, which is a huge mountain on one side. It's shaped like a pork chop. It's an extinct volcano. It's basically thick black sand. So think when you're at the beach, when it's real fine sand and you're trying to step, every step you take, your feet stick in. Every time you dig a shovel, the sand fills back in. So it's just miserable. There's 21,000 Japanese soldiers on this island, and they've been fortifying it. So earlier in the Pacific, because, so positionally we have the Marianas Islands and we have Japan. Halfway in between that is Iwo Jima. So it's an early radar station. So the Japanese have radar there, and they can see our planes coming back and forth. They can launch their attacks from there. We need it because we need to take out that radar, and we also need that airstrip because we can launch attacks to the home island of Japan from there. So it's hugely important. After the battle, there was arguments on whether or not it was necessary or not, but at the time it was, we need that land. We can't have that enemy in between us and the homeland of Japan. And if we get that, after we took the island, there was thousands of crippled planes that would fly to Japan, get shot up, and they would make emergency landing on Iwo Jima.
Oh, okay. So it worked out to be pretty important.
I believe so. Again,
Yeah.
there's still some historians and stuff that will argue with hindsight, which is always easy. But there's not a lot of vegetation on the island. There's 21,000 Japs who are determined to die. These guys, they say if they would have attacked a year earlier, we could have took the island in weeks. or I mean in days, because there wasn't a fortification. But all they've been doing is fortifying it. The Japanese commander that's there, they're digging these huge tunnels, and they're using the lessons they've learned throughout the Pacific. So they're building their trenches at angles that our flamethrowers can't hit them. So they'll hit in, and they can go down. And there's tunnel systems. There's huge pieces of Japanese artillery. They have food to last them for months of fighting. These Japanese are just ready to die, and they're again that goal of they want to kill 10 Americans before they're allowed to die. So earlier on, it was banzai charge, just try to overwhelm, scare, and kill them. Now it's don't let yourself be killed until you kill 10 guys. And for a while, they were doing it. They were successful at that at the beginning of the battle. So prior to the invasion, we're not going to just dump these soldiers or these Marines and these sailors on shore. So they bombed. It was 6,800 tons of bombs and 22,000 naval shells were used against Iwo Jima between November 1944 and February 1945. We're trying to soften them up. We're trying to, let's kill all these people before we land on the island, and then we'll take it in a few days. The island, the whole attack was supposed to take a week or whatever it was going to be. They always say.
So they're just bombing the hell out of it.
But the Japanese are just in their tunnels. They're going deep into the caverns of this island. They're going. They know the drill. They know the plan. They've planned for this, and they know they can't take us on the beach. So they do exactly according to plan.
Bait them in.
Bait them in. Get the Americans in to a degree, and then open up. So Jack Lucas turned 17 years old on the ship. He has his 17th birthday. 5 days later, on February 19th, 1945, he lands on Iwo Jima. So not only was he 17, he was 17 plus 5 days. It was only 5 days after his 17th birthday.
So are they just running those boats straight up?
So these Higgins boats, they're going to be, or the landing craft, the Amtrak, they have different boats in the Marine Corps. They're going to be circling out to sea, getting these big formations. You're climbing down those rope decks, you're feeling the salt air. Before these big battles, they'll have like a steak and egg dinner and all that, or breakfast. He actually had guard duty the night before from midnight to 4, so he's exhausted. By the time he gets to the chow line, all the steak's gone, so he just has eggs. But those rope nets, on the side of the boat.
Yeah.
And you're getting into the smaller crafts, and the smaller crafts are rocking, and people are getting seasick, and you can see the island, and you can hear the naval gunfire, and it's pounding, and you're, part of you is praying that.
Do they know it's going to be a heavy battle?
They told them, again, it's only going to take a couple days. We're going to wipe them all out with artillery fire, and we're going to go in and we're going to kill them all. So maybe some of the younger, naive guys might think that, but most of the guys that have any experience know that they've heard that before, and it's probably not gonna be that easy.
Yeah.
For 72 days, they bombed Iwo Jima before we went, and as a result, we only killed 200 of the Japanese. They estimate out of the 21,000, we only killed 200 of them with this intense amount of bombing.
And nobody should have been left, right?
We wouldn't have thought, but we didn't know how serious their fortifications were, how sophisticated their fortifications were.
So they had like real elaborate tunnel systems?
Yeah, elaborate tunnel systems. I mean, they had hospitals underground. They had these big areas they could move and maneuver. Tunnels would connect to each other. They had giant artillery pieces and stuff. This isn't some Stone Age enemy. This is a very advanced military population with a determined, courageous commander and fanatical, courageous troops that are willing to die for their homeland. And they know we have to stop these Americans here. We have to try to slow these Americans down. They believe in this 100%. These aren't just conscripts. These aren't, guys that don't want to fight. These guys believe in their cause just as much or more than our guys do, and they're willing to die for it,
After they get 10 of you.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So over there now, are these places still intact?
Yeah, Iwo Jima is it's owned by the Japanese. You can only go over there. I think you got to fly from Guam. They once a year they let some Marines and dignitaries go visit it, but it's a historic landmark, so they can't move anything. There's still Japanese bodies entombed all over the island. There's pieces of equipment. You can still see the tunnels and all that stuff still there.
So people can walk through them?
I'm not sure what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do on the island.
Yeah.
But you can't get over there without, it's like one plane load of dignitaries, people that get special permission and stuff. A lot of veterans have gone back and stuff.
Yeah.
So 17 years old, him and his cousin land. They land on February 19th, 1945. As soon as they hit the beach, they start moving in. Again, they're thinking in their heads, maybe all that bombing worked because we're not getting attacked. Every step you take is labored and fatigued, though, because every step you take, your foot goes in all the way down to your ankle, right? This isn't just like Newport Beach or Huntington Beach. This is like deep, that black, fine sand. It's getting into your weapon. It's getting into your gear. It's staining everything.
How big is the island?
Square footage wise, I don't have a clue.
But I mean, is it like
It's enough to get 21,000
Okay.
Japanese soldiers to defend it, and
Okay.
thousands of Americans on
pretty
that
good
beach.
size then?
Yeah, it's got airstrips and it's
Yeah.
got all that good stuff. So
Okay.
yeah, it's a substantial piece of land, just not by the standards of living on it. It's an uninhabited island. Nobody
Okay.
would live there other than this.
Jesus, man? So there's nothing there at this point. There's no buildings or nothing
Correct.
like that.
There's nothing there but a determined enemy and their fortifications. Just military installations, period.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like Okinawa where there's a population and
Yeah.
there's homes and things. It's not like Guadalcanal where there's thick jungle. It's pretty much a giant mountain on one end and then this ash and sand everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, so they start pushing in. When they get to a predetermined location, the Japanese start lighting flares and they open up. And I'm talking, big steel doors are moved up and artillery pieces are opening up, and then our guys are just getting slaughtered on the beach. 6,000 of American men were pinned down on these beaches. We can't move forward because every single square foot of this island is in crossfire. Their machine guns are set up, their artillery set up. Guys are getting shoot up on the beach. Our landing, our Amtraks, and all of our equipment that's coming on the beach starts getting hit. So now we have a mass of bodies and broken equipment, right? The only people on the beach, the only people that, if you want to move forward, you're going to get cut down. So everybody's just pinned down. You're keeping your head down. You're thinking like, holy shit, we're desperately trying to push forward on this foothill. So 17-year-old Jack Lucas and all these other Americans that are there, you're literally looking to your left and your right, and you're seeing charred pieces of bodies. You're seeing guys going down. You're seeing explosions. We're fighting back with our artillery, with our naval gunfire. So these loud booms are going overhead. We have flamethrowers. They're trying to get up into these positions. So you're not even seeing the Japanese. All you're seeing is slits opening up in the sides of hills and slits opening up in this stuff. And our tanks are moving forward with it looks like a Zippo. I'll show you some videos. When they're shooting this, they're not shooting tank shells. They're shooting flamethrower out of the tanks into these positions. But again, the Japanese are sophisticated now, so it's not as easy. They have these pillboxes, so the Americans, they have to try to pin them down, and someone has to run up into this fusillade of fire and try to throw a satchel charge in while people go around back. While you're doing that, you're getting cut down by another position. So every inch of ground you're fighting for, and every inch of ground
So
you're
they were
dying
well prepared.
well prepared, and we got caught in this just steel mill. Anybody that's familiar with Iwo Jima, you don't need me to kind of go over all the details, but it's hellacious. It's what you think of as hell. It stinks like sulfur. It's hot. It's you're thirsty. People are fucking dying around you. You can't move. You're trying to dig into the ground, and the tunnel is just coming in around you. You don't know where the Japanese are going to be, and the fire is just murderous and it's unrelenting. So a lot of these guys got stuck. They got pinned down, and they stayed there pretty much until the night, till we could get more troops and try to move forward.
Wow. And then
Yeah.
at night it would stop?
It would not stop at all at night. But at night at night it's when a lot of movement went on. At night we were trying to take the wounded off the beach, because if we try to move them during the day, the Japanese are popping up out of little spider holes and they're stabbing people, they're killing people. Some Americans were captured and tortured. They found their bodies. If you've ever seen Flags of Iwo Jima, Flags of Our Fathers, or read the book, one of the Navy corpsmen who's featured in the book, his buddy, he was in a foxhole with them. He ran forward to help someone else. He came back and he was gone. He never found him. Turns out the Japanese had taken him down. When they found him, they had cut off his penis. They cut off his tongue. They had stabbed him for hours and just tortured and mutilated him and stuff.
Jeez.
At night, the Japanese are yelling in English. They're yelling at him. They're calling for medics, so the Americans will run for him, the corpsmen, and then they're murdering them, or let's war.
Yeah.
They're shooting them. They're talking shit to them. They're doing all these things. We had an order at night not to move around. We're not advancing. Stay in your holes and shoot anything that moves. That means anything that's moving is a Japanese soldier, so you can shoot them. If you get up and move, you might get shot. So guys, getting...
So they're like boogeymen, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Just terrifying. And again, 17 years old, man.
And how do you not see the spider holes and stuff?
Because there's black sand everywhere. There's... If you and I are in combat right here, 10 feet above you, if there's hills and there's definitely, you're not going to know what's behind that.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's going on 100 meters to your left or your right.
And there's just tunnels all throughout.
Tunnels, trenches, fortifications, all that kind of stuff. So again, the bodies are... We're trying to get our wounded out. We're trying to bring people in during the night. You're hearing all these machines. You're hearing all these equipment. Some of the Americans' foxholes were close to the... underground thermal vents and stuff, so they're real warm during the night. But Lucas is just freezing his ass off. He's in a hole and he's shivering. The gear that they gave him, the equipment they gave him was for a soldier that was a big dude. So his feet were just flopping around, and he had to take his knife and cut the pant legs off. So one was flopping and one was cut under the knee, kind of like a little kid wearing someone else's clothes. So his gear's all messed up. He's just shivering through the night.
To give you an idea of how ferocious Iwo Jima was, in the first 18 hours, 2,300 Americans were killed. In
Jeez.
18 hours. 18 hours. So we'll have to look up the square footage of it to imagine that. But 18 hours. There's no part of this island, there's no Marine on this island that's not seeing death and devastation everywhere. I'm thinking...
Just that first 18 hours is almost the 9/11 death toll, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
In 18 hours. And it's and this is a battle that's going to go on for, I think, 36 days.
Jeez.
Okay. So... And this is the hardest part, obviously, is getting on that island. And
we're just throwing waves at them.
We're throwing bodies and men and machinery at them now. We gotta punch through, because if you don't, if you fall back, you're just gonna have to try it again.
Who's the general in this position?
I think it was Howland Mad Smith was the Marine general. I believe he was in charge. I could be wrong, but you have the Navy, you have Nimitz, you have everybody else. But I think it was Smith was.
And a lot of them had that same kind of Patton style where you just.
Well, you have to at this point. So we're in the clutch right now. This is. If you fall back, you just got to retake that ground. We're not going to pay for the same real estate twice. You have to push through. This isn't some I don't care about these guys' lives. This is the opposite. This is we need to expose what we have. We need to punch through. We need to drive through now. It's life or death right now. You need to get through that door.
But I mean, at 2,300 dead Americans at that end of that 18 hours, how do they?
Yeah, that's what.
Because that's not a lot of hope, right?
These are those ones that Roosevelt knows they'd read the newspapers and they would just be shocked by looking at. But what are you going to do? What's your option, Donnie?
I don't know. I'm just saying, at what point is it to where you go, dude, is it even possible?
And then what, though? You know what I mean?
Do you know what I mean? But
yeah,
I mean,
oh, absolutely. And there were generals relieved all over Europe and the Pacific for this kind of stuff. And some of these battles, if you look at the losses, they were someone's fault, you know? But
I'm not saying it's someone's fault. I'm just like,
no,
at what point do you go, we're not going to make it on there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We lost 2,300 in 18 hours.
Failure's not an option.
So you
I'll
just
put
keep
it
throwing at it.
Failure's not an option. We'll give up when all of our troops in reserve are no longer sustainable and can't put forward, when they're no longer combat effective. At this point, we are. We expected this to a degree. And again, we've talked about it before. Think about what would happen on the Japanese mainland.
Yeah.
You know?
Man. Yeah, this is just some bullshit island.
Exactly. In a sense, this is a sulfuric dot on a map that no one had ever heard of before this. Even the Japanese probably didn't even care about. Yeah, exactly. So imagine being a 17-year-old kid shivering through the night. You have to just know you're going to die. You just have to know you're going to die.
Dude, to think that... So what... I'm trying to think of how spread out it was. Was it really at one particular point that they lost 2,300?
Well, we're in like this. This is all over the island. We're in the center. We're trying to cut the island in half and then take Suribachi, which is the high ground, which is this mountain that's raining down the artillery fire. If we can take that, then we can start moving through the island, which is what we did. So we're cutting through the middle of the pork chop, as this is my understanding, cutting through the middle of the pork chop, then we want to shift troops to take the high ground, and then we're going to sweep the rest of the island.
Jeez. So 2,300
Easier
people
said
dead.
than done. You've seen the picture of the flag raising on Suribachi, right? Do you know that not all those guys survived that hill, coming down that hill?
No.
That's how ferocious this battle was. Because the flag raising, there's a
That's
first
at the
flag
top
raising.
of that's high ground?
Yeah, that's the high ground. That's Mount Suribachi.
So that's more like, was that more like to let everybody know? Like, we got the high ground now?
Exactly. It's exactly what it
Wow,
was.
it's so
That
much-
wasn't the end of the battle. The battle went on for weeks after that. But the first flag raising,
if you're at the low ground, you're looking up going, oh, shit. they got the
guys
high
were
ground.
crying.
Yeah?
Guys were crying. There's all kinds of accounts. There's a song when the Yanks raised the Stars and Stripes on Iwo Jima Isle. There were tears in their eyes, and so they smiled and stuff. Yeah, it's a huge thing. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of these guys were veterans, but a lot of these guys had never been in combat before, and they're just thrown into this meat grinder. So Jack Lucas, a normal person would probably be thinking, what the fuck did I get myself into, you know?
And he's witnessed how, I mean, you can't even imagine how many people
And he doesn't know
saw
where his
die.
cousin is. His cousin was with him, and now his cousin's away. But knowing Jack Lucas, he was probably thinking, this is what I wanted, so here we are. So he's waiting for his chance. So when the sun comes up in that morning, hell opens up again. They're still going to be facing that onslaught. We haven't gained much ground. We've got a little bit. They start moving forward. They're finally gaining some advancement. One of the machine gunners goes down and gets killed. His weapon's destroyed. So one of the commanders yells at him and another guy, go back and get a machine gun. So he's a machine gunner. So he runs back to the beach, and it's in a little cart. They can't even drag it in the cart because the wheels are just going into the sand and stuff.
Yeah.
That's how hellacious it is. At some point, a Japanese soldier pops up to run from one of the tanks, and everybody just opens up on him. So Jack starts firing into him too. So he gets his first kill. He finally gets to kill a Japanese soldier. He goes through his gear and he puts it in his bag and stuff. You know, he's got the pictures and all that stuff. They start fighting. They're moving forward. We have our tanks. We have everything. This is day 2 of this, I believe 36-day battle. It might have been 33. I fudge my numbers sometimes. 17 plus 5 days, year old kid. He's moving. They start snaking through a trench. There's chaos everywhere. This is not I mean, it's organized on the large scale, but this is not, there's the hill, I'm moving towards it. This is enemies everywhere. They're popping up in front. They're popping up in behind. They're dead. There's bodies flying. There's guns going, or rounds going both ways. I don't know what's going on. They're snaking through a trench, and they come across another trench. One of his officers actually jumped over and found himself in the enemy trench, came back. They find themselves face to face with 11 Japanese soldiers. They're just point blank range, just firing at each other. So Lucas kills two. He raises his rifle, and he fires, and he kills the first one. He moves his rifle again, and he fires at the second one. He shoots him right below the eye. He watches the blood fly out of the back of his head. Again, 17-and-a-half-year-old kid.
Yeah.
He's watching this guy face to face, just shooting him. Pop, pop. He's firing from the hip. He doesn't have time to shoot. He doesn't have time to do anything. And then his rifle jams. And there's 11 enemy soldiers in front of him, and there's his guys beside him. He said he's never had any problems with his rifle ever. He keeps a meticulous rifle, but this island is sand. It's grit. It's dirt. So his rifle jams. This never happens. So he looks down to fix his rifle, and he sees 2 grenades on the ground, which is obviously a nightmare. He knows if these grenades go off, if they don't kill his buddies, they're going to wound everybody. And if they're wounded, these Japs are going to finish him off. They're going to beat him to death. They're going to stab him. They're going to shoot him. So without hesitation, he yells grenade, and he does what he calls a Superman dive. He dives over the grenades. He grabs his rifle, and he's able to shove one of the grenades into the sand as far as it can go, and then he actually covers it, and he reaches out with his other arm, grabs the other grenade, and pulls it into his body. 17-year-old kid. As grenades do, the grenades blow up. So before it blows, he actually felt someone running across his back to get away because he yelled grenade and he dove on him. He's again making that voluntary choice to give his life to save these guys. Fortunately, the grenade that he grabbed did not blow up. It was a dud. The one that he shoved in the sand blew. So he blew sky high. He blew up into the air. As he's falling, he said he felt peace. He felt no pain. He didn't feel anything. He couldn't hear anything. He couldn't see anything. He just kind of floated to the ground, and he saw all his guys just running away, advancing forward. They think he's dead, so he knows that at least he died, basically, to save them. So when he hits the ground, he's completely numb, and he's by himself. He can't move. His arm is trapped underneath him, and he knows he's dying. No pain, just a severe sense of peace, he says. And then all at once, the pain hit him, and he has this unbearable agony, and he starts bleeding. He had shrapnel throughout his body. He had shrapnel in his brain. He had shrapnel in his heart. His arm was shattered. His eyeball was dislocated and hanging out onto his face. He couldn't move his arms. He couldn't move his legs. He couldn't do anything. He's choking on blood, but he never lost consciousness, which saved his life. Because he never lost consciousness, he started welling up blood in his mouth. Had he been unconscious, he would have choked or drowned in his own blood, but he was able to spit it out to try to fight to live. So as everybody's moving forward, he's by himself laying there. He's got hundreds of pieces of shrapnel in his body. Hundreds. He ended up having 250 entrance wounds, 250 shrapnel wounds, some as large as a .22 caliber in his body. And again, that includes 6 pieces of shrapnel in his brain, 2 in his heart. He had a punctured lung, so he's suffocating. He's trying to breathe. He's trying to, again, spit out this blood, and he said he's just feeling this agonizing pain hit him all at once. 17-year-old kid.
Jeez.
17-year-old kid laying on the sulfuric island. And not only is he just jumped on a grenade, not only is he, by all accounts, should be dead, but there's still enemy everywhere.
Yeah.
And everybody's moved on because they thought he was dead. So he's praying to live, and he's praying that the Japs won't come kill him. So he said he's just in this again, agonizing pain. Every single part of his body's hurting. He can't see. He can't hear. He's choking. He's suffocating because he's got that punctured lung. And then he prayed out to God. He said, God, please save me. Please save me, God. And then he said it all just stopped. And then he just felt calm again. And then out of nowhere, a heroic Navy corpsman ran up and started. He saw him. Everybody thought he was dead. And an American saw him and saw his finger moving and realized he was alive. So the corpsman runs up and starts giving him plasma, starts giving him this life-saving treatment, basically. While this corpsman's treating him, a Japanese soldier jumps out of a spider hole to kill him, and the corpsman actually puts down fire. A corpsman's a medic, and that's how ferocious this battle is. This corpsman kills this Japanese soldier with a rifle to save Lucas's life, and he later found out that the corpsman did not survive the battle. He ended up being killed in action. The corpsman had to reset his eye that was hanging out of his face. He had to shove it back in his eye. They cover him up, and then there's mortars going off, the ground shaking, so these Stretcher bearers come running up. They throw him on a stretcher, and they start running back. But these stretcher bearers are so fatigued. They've been doing this for hours, and they're exhausted, and they're wounded, and they have this combat trauma too. They start running, and the one near his head just drops him because he's exhausted, and he slides down, and he cracks his head open. So now he's got a laceration on the back of his head. Damn. They end up getting him to the beach, and they have to shove a tube down his throat. They start giving him morphine, blood transfers, plasma. They're putting brandy in the tube to prevent shock, like actual like drinking brandy, basically. So he's 17 years old. He's laying on this beach, just surrounded by bodies, and he's kind of thinking, "How did I survive this?" And then they come by and they put the sheet over his head, and he realizes, "I'm dead. I didn't survive. I died." But really, what it was the volcanic ash and everything that kept spitting up was killing people. Basically, these wounded guys so they were just covering him up. So he stayed there covered up for hours in this blackness. He can't move. He can't talk. He can't do anything but just be alone in his thoughts. They finally.
Wow, dude.
Yeah, 17 years old, man.
Yeah.
They finally were able to get him to a ship. They take him out to the ship, and they put him on a ship, and he's so bad, his arms just shredded. Again, punctured lung, shrapnel in brain, shrapnel in heart. A 17-year-old kid, just imagine how tough and hardy he was to survive this. Not to mention the concussion of the grenade, to mention that blast that so often kills people in IEDs. And then again, just being around these bodies. So they transfer him to the one hospital ship, and they realize like he's too bad. We need to get him to another ship. They get him all bandaged up. They get this bleeding stop. They get him to another ship, and the sailors up there trying to drop the rope down so they can wheel him up. And apparently the captain or one of the naval officers got frustrated with the guy, grabbed the rope and said, "Let me do it." And he kind of messed around and he dropped the rope, and this big heavy rope came and hit him in the chest, reopened all of his wounds. So they had to get him on board and immediately do all this emergency surgery. They were going to amputate his arm, kind of like Wetzel, but before he went out, he told the doctor, "Please save my arm." So they did. They were able to save his arm. They had to put maggots inside of him to eat out all the dead flesh. He ended up basically having tattoos on all these 250 wounds because that black sand that came in with the grenades stained his body, basically. So he... so he ended up having 22 surgeries. He was transported back to, eventually to San Francisco. While he was on the hospital ships, though, he went out on day 2 of the battle. This is a 30-something day battle, 5-week battle. Yeah. But he saw and he heard the flag raising. He said he was facing the right way, and they put the flag up, and it was just a small little thing you could see on Suribachi, but the whole fighting on the island stopped. All the ships started ringing their giant horns and spraying the water, and everybody just went crazy, batshit crazy. The battle wasn't over, the war wasn't over, but that was a sign we're moving forward. Because if you're in that battle, you got to be thinking we're dying here, man. We are not winning, we're losing, and that was that sign.
The big picture,
exactly, that was that sign of that big picture that they were able to push forward. So eventually, they saved his life, they saved his arm. He was transported back to San Francisco, and then they took him by train to North Carolina. In September 18th, 1945, he was discharged from the hospital, and he ended up living basically a long, fruitful life.
Yeah.
Like we said, I think I've told you before, they told him, "Hey, you get the Medal of Honor." They took him to Washington, D.C., Remember what Truman says to everybody?
Yeah.
What's Truman say? Remember?
I'd rather have this medal than be the president of the United States.
Exactly. So he said that to every single person, but Jack Lucas was the only one with a pithy reply. He said, "I'd rather have this medal than be the president." And Jack Lucas said, "I'll swap you, sir." Like, okay, I'll trade you. Yeah. So obviously he didn't, but he got a lot more women in booths. Got to go party, and he lived it up. He enjoyed it quite a bit. He ended up having a family. Had some, troubles as guys often do. Ended up getting divorced. Had a second family. Had some other issues. He ended up joining the Army in the 1960s and became a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne. Jeez. Didn't have enough. He said he was afraid of heights, so he wanted to overcome his fear of heights. So he decided to jump out of planes. Fire. Being Jack Lucas, on one of his jumps in the 82nd Airborne, you jump out. You don't pull your cord. You just jump out, and it hits the risers. So he's the last one out of the plane. He starts going down. He's a captain, and he realizes his chute doesn't open. So as he's plummeting to the earth with no chute, he looks up behind him, and instead of being a canopy, his risers are twisted. So he's desperately trying to untwist the risers. He ended up landing, I believe it was 1,200 feet. He went from the last one on the plane to the first one on the ground. He plummeted to the ground with no parachute. He did his good PLF, parachute landing fall, and he survived that as well. So not only did he survive jumping on a grenade, he actually also survived a 1,200-foot fall to earth
Jeez.
In the 82nd Airborne. So best of both worlds. Army,
Just a total
combat. Yeah,
badass.
just a total badass. Ended up going to college. He got a business degree. He had a meat market and some other things. He had some issues with some of his wives, but he ended up dying of leukemia in 2008. So he got to live
Oh, wow.
long
Nice.
life. He was kind of a, like I said, in the smaller circles, a lot of Marines knew him. You see a lot of pictures of him wearing his big Marine Corps League jacket, that bright red with Marines all around him. Everywhere he'd go, people liked to hear him talk. So he got his respect, which is pretty
That's
awesome.
awesome.
He loved the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps loved him.
Yeah. The name kind of matches too. Jack
that?
Lucas. It just sounds.
His name's Jacqueline, actually.
Is
but
it?
Jack
Oh,
Lucas.
really?
Yeah. Little badass dude, though.
Yeah.
Just stocky. When you see the pictures of him when he's 14, he's got a little bit of a baby face, but you can kind of go, I can see why they.
Yeah.
He'd probably kick my ass. He is a pretty solid dude. But
What
it
a
goes back
life.
to it goes back to all of these. You know, that conscious decision. In some cases, it's quick. In some cases, it's long sustained courage. His was his drive was for years, since he was 13 years old, to get in combat. He finally did so when he turned 17.
Just wouldn't be denied.
Nothing could stop him. Instead of taking, the universe or God or fate and saying, maybe I should go back to my mom. He did everything he could to get in combat. And when he did, and when that time came, he didn't hesitate. He fought the enemy man to man with his rifle, and when it came time for the grenade, he didn't hesitate. He dove on it, and then he reached out and grabbed the second one.
It's almost like a fate thing. I know you don't believe in fate, but it's like if you are those guys that he saved and you track back all the craziness that had to happen for him to be on that island at that time,
right.
that's insane.
But there's also almost 6,000 dead Americans on that
That's
island.
true.
So you could track them back too, and it didn't
That's
work
true,
out.
that's true.
But at the end
that.
of the day, again, he was in the right time and right place, and he had that courage, and his courage saved those guys. And again,
Yeah.
all those guys, as we always say, every son and daughter that was born to them owes their life to Jack Lucas.
Yeah.
So
Man.
the
Citation.
embodiment of Marine Corps courage. Oh yes,
Yeah, it really is.
Let me.
Jeez, what a life though, man.
Yeah.
You could only pray that your funeral would be that packed. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's a lot of accomplishment.
And
for,
he's one.
for
He
a
got to go
human
back
being.
to Iwo Jima and see the islands and everything
Yeah.
like that.
Very cool.
All right, citation. The President of the United States, in the name of Congress, takes pleasure in presenting the Medal of Honor to Private First Class Jacqueline Harold Lucas, United States Marine Corps Reserve, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty, while serving with Company C, 1st Battalion, 26th Marines, 5th Marine Division, during action against enemy Japanese forces on Iwo Jima Volcano Islands, 20 February 1945. While creeping through treacherous twisting ravine, which ran in close proximity to a fluid and uncertain front line on D+1 day, Private First Class Lucas and 3 other men were suddenly ambushed by a hostile platoon which savagely attacked with rifle fires and grenade. Quick to act, when the lives of the small group were endangered by the 2 grenades which landed directly in front of them, Private First Class Lucas unhesitatingly hurled himself over his comrades upon one grenade and pulled the other under him, absorbing the whole blasting force of the explosions in his own body in order to shield his companions from the concussion and murderous flying fragments. By his inspiring action and valiant spirit of self-sacrifice, he not only protected his comrades from certain injury or possible death, but also enabled them to rout the Japanese patrol and continued the advance. His exceptionally courageous initiative and loyalty reflect the highest credit upon Private First Class Lucas and the United States Naval Forces.
Man, good one.
So,
Crazy.
first Marine we've done on the
Jack
show.
Lucas.
And
Awesome.
I saved a good one. So I
Yeah,
think
that
this
was
is a
good.
one. Yeah.
All right, man. Questions, comments, concerns in the comment section? You got anything?
Nope.
We'll see you guys
Thanks for
next
listening.
week.